All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and we're here for a session that we have really begun to enjoy over the last few months. It's a Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Solution Showcase. It's an event that has been really useful and enjoyable to our audiences, and we're so glad you could join us today. Today's session, we have three presenters, and we're going to dive right in just a moment. We have Gwyn Golden from Experlogix, Neil McDonald from Binary Stream, and Ed Kennedy from Episerver here. Each of our presenters is going to have 16 minutes to present to you, to give you an introduction to their solutions, a look at the products, a look at some of the thought leadership that each of these companies brings to bear. And we're also going to leave time for you in the audience to ask questions. We invite you to ask really anything on your mind, to learn more and gain more information about our presenters' products and their companies. So please don't hesitate to do that. To ask questions, the best way to do that is to look for the Q&A block to the right of the main presentation area. Entering your questions at any time, and we will be saving all of those until the end, and we'll be sure to get to them all. So without any further delay, I think we are ready to begin here. And our first presenter is going to be Gwyn Golden of Experlogix. Gwyn, I'm going to make you the presenter now.
Thank you, Jason. All right, hello everybody. My name is Gwyn Golden, and what we're going to be talking about today is how you can harness the power of a manufacturing product configurator directly within Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. And what might be on your mind right away is, what is CPQ and why do companies need it? So I'm going to take just a few moments to talk about this. The C in CPQ stands for configure, where we want to help you configure your quote by adding all of the products and services with their related accessories and a guided selling user interface. So really make it easy for the salespeople. And most importantly, price it out. So price it based on any variable that you might have that determines your product or service. And then ultimately producing that professionally looking quote. So with CPQ, again, why do companies need it? Well, you want to make sure that salespeople are selling something that can actually be produced. So we want to make sure that with the salespeople, every salesperson becomes an expert in selling their product. You can hire somebody tomorrow, and they should be able to put together a quote for you immediately with a good CPQ solution. If you are then going to manufacture it, if the salesperson told them that they could sell it a certain way, we want to make sure that we can build it. So Experlogix is going to automatically create the bill of material that's associated with that product. And then we're going to make sure that there's option compatibility. So you're never going to be able to put together a quote that options should not be together. So Experlogix has been doing this for a long time. We were founded in 2002. We are 100% focused on CPQ solutions, and we are a certified solution for Microsoft Dynamics. Over 275 customers using our solution today, so you can rest assured that we know the product and we integrate very well with Dynamics. As far as the industries that need CPQ, ranges all over the board. Really what I like to say is any customer that has complexities around the way that they put together a quote. And each one of these industries have their own unique complexities, from apparel companies to medical and scientific devices, hardware and software companies, professional services. So really each one of these companies has their uniqueness, and Experlogix is able to help them in all situations. When we talk to customers, we often hear that some of the quoting tools that they're using today are ones that maybe you and your company are using Excel or Word templates, maybe using paper catalogs, a legacy system that's no longer supported and doesn't integrate to anything. You might have people still using pen and paper. And then everybody's got that person in their organization that just knows how to put together a quote because they've been doing it for so long. The problem with that is that quoting takes too long. So whether we're using some of those older solutions or waiting for somebody to help us out, it's taking too long. We're not even sure if it's right, so we lose confidence in the quotes that we're putting out. And more importantly, we don't have any forecasting ability because it's in other systems. So as I go through the demonstration today, those are some of the things that I want you to keep in mind as you're thinking about your own organizations. So right now we've got Dynamics 365 open, and Experlogix does work within the quotes, orders, and project quotes directly within finance and operations. I'm going to go ahead and start it from a quote. So the idea is that a salesperson is going to come in here and create a new quote. They'll select if this is going to be a customer or prospect, select their customer or prospect. And now you'll notice that Experlogix has a CPQ tab, and so you're now going to be able to configure this particular quote. And what happens is Experlogix loads up a product hierarchy. And in this truck example, you may be talking to the customer and they're not really sure what kind of truck they want. So we're going to guide them through the process by asking them some questions. So this is a way to filter out the different trucks that we offer based on how they need to use it. And so notice as we roll down, these are all the trucks that are offered. But as you start to ask the customer questions, it'll start filtering down those choices. So if we first ask them, are you interested in a truck or a tractor? And they may say, yep, looking for a truck. Great. Please tell me how you intend to use this. Is it going to be for a general freight, city delivery, etc.? And once they make that selection, Experlogix is starting to filter the choices. And as we go through, and let's say that they're going to be using this on a flat terrain, and the expected load weight will be less than 10,000. And so now there's 3 trucks to choose from, and you could continue going through different types of characteristics. Ultimately, as you make all of your different changes, you might be then presented with, in this case, 2 trucks. Now, alternatively, if the customer knows exactly what kind of truck they want, we may just go ahead and come back to the main page here, and we're going to configure a truck to their needs. And they indicate which model they want to start with. And now what Experlogix does is it loads up all of the different categories of things that are configurable about a truck. So we've got engine choices, transmission, we can add a sleeper, can change colors, add a cab. And down on the bottom, this is a status bar that lists any calculated field that's important for the sales rep to see. So as they're configuring this truck, they always know where they are with the profitability or what their commission is on this deal. And if they needed to have additional details like popping out to a brochure, maybe they want to be able to see some additional information to give to the customer or take an interactive tour. Now, as the user starts to configure this, they can still be prompted with some messaging. So notice if we go back and ask them some similar questions, in this case, if they tell us they're driving on a hilly terrain, we're going to recommend a more powerful engine. So we're saying, you know, you're going to be driving go ahead and leave that marked and just continue on. But is Experlogix said, well, wait a minute, that you have compatible engine. And so it's actually letting the user know that there's an error on this particular configuration and points them to the category that is causing the problem. So we can now see that there are some items that are grayed out. We can't select those. We see the one that's a problem, and we can see the ones that we can choose from. So if they make one of these selections, the error now goes away and they can continue on. Now, if the customer decided they really wanted to take a look at some different engines, we're going to go ahead and come back and say, well, tell me what type of engine you're looking for. And you can see these different headings here. We can sort by peak torque, maybe some governed RPMs, price. And as we go through and start putting in some selections, maybe they want to see peak torque ratings of greater than 1800 and RPMs greater than 500. And now we want to sort it by price. Go ahead and select one of these items, save it, and we now just swapped out that particular engine. Now the user can continue on down the left-hand side or go in any order they want. Maybe they want to see it in a different color, so we've got some visualization that they can do. Maybe they want to see what it'll look like with that, with a cab added onto it. Now we can see that. Now they say, yep, let's go ahead and add in that sleeper. Now what's happened to this is an upsell message. If they're getting a sleeper, we're going to recommend some other components for them. And so recommend a bunk and a freezer. And if they want those items, we'll just go ahead and leave those marked. But now notice what's happened. It's opened up some different storage options that we can offer. We can offer in some windows or some doors. Okay, so the user can continue on. If they're happy with it, they're going to quickly view it, make sure that they've selected everything for this customer. Salesperson is happy with that. They're going to go ahead and save this. Now what's happening is Experlogix is taking everything that was configurable about this truck all the way down to the different line items. And as mentioned, we're going to have to make this truck. So behind the scenes, we are creating a bill of material that's associated with this. But what's going to happen here is we're going to be taking all of these details, populate it back into the line items and the header information for the particular quote that we started it from. Okay, so now you can see we've got actually an item that's going to have to be made, and it's got some other components that are to us just additional line items, and ultimately we'll be making this truck. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at what else we can do. So whenever we go back into configure, Experlogix recognizes that a configuration is already in place, and the choices are to either edit it, delete it, duplicate it, add another configuration. Maybe the customer wants a quote for 2 trucks that'll be configured slightly different. Maybe they're just deciding between trucks that are configured a certain way. And so now what we can do is duplicate this configuration. And by duplicating it, it's making an exact copy of everything that we configured in the first instance, and it's going to now allow us to edit it or make additional changes. Give that a second to duplicate. Now we'll go ahead and edit the second configuration, and let's say they wanted to price it out with a larger sleeper. So go ahead and add the larger sleeper, and it's smart enough to know that it removed some items that are incompatible with that larger component, but we can add in some other components here. Maybe we want to add in a window, and let's pick a different transmission. And now we'll save this. And now by saving this configuration, what this is going to give us the ability to do is now compare the configurations. Okay, so if the customer were interested in just one truck, but they wanted to see what it would look like if we configured them slightly different, we'll have that capability. So by saving this, we'll now be able to go back into the home page. Give that just a moment to refresh. And now note we have 2 different configurations with 2 different prices. We'll be able to compare them. This is going to show us from every category side by side what was configured, what wasn't, what was selected in each item. If you want to focus in on what's different about these configurations, we can now see the differences. And if you wanted to see additional details about each one of these items, you can actually just expand the information. And so if we wanted to see between these 2 items how that was going to differ, it differs in price, difference in some other information. Okay. Now if the customer decided they wanted to stick with one or the other, let's say they want to stick with the first one, we'll just go ahead and delete this configuration. And what that'll do is remove that from the configuration altogether. And now when we close it, it's just going to take us back where we were into the quote. And if you needed to, you can always see a bill of material. So Experlogix will show that, hey, once this becomes an order and it actually goes into the manufacturing process, this is what we're going to need to be able to configure it. And any time that you're making changes to the configuration, this bill of material is dynamically going to be updated so that ultimately, as mentioned, when this does become an order, we'll go ahead and take a look down in the product area. What we'll end up doing is we're going to create a corresponding bill of material associated with that. Okay, so basically what I've shown you is the ability to do all of your quotes and or orders. So as I mentioned early on, you could also start Experlogix directly from an order if you bypass quoting altogether. And so if we were to create a new order, and we'll just grab a customer real quickly. And say OK. And now you'll notice we still have the CPQ functionality here. And so all the way from enabling your sales reps to configure a quote, make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's fast, and make sure that it's working with the manufacturing. You'll have all of that capability. So in summary, we want to make sure they're fast and accurate, really key components here. It is an integrated solution working with Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, as well as Dynamics AX 2012. You're going to make sure that you have happy salespeople because they're getting the quoting that they want, or, and the quoting that they can do, and happy customers because they're going to know that it's accurate. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Jason.
Great, thank you, Gwen. And our next presenter is going to be Neil McDonald from Binary Stream. Neil, I am making you the presenter now.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Are you seeing my screen okay?
We are.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, everybody. What I want to do is carry on with what we've been doing at a lot of these events, is talking about little various features of our subscription billing suite. Focus today on D365 Finance and Operations, but everything I'm going to show is available in Business Central, Nav, and Dynamics GP as well. But again, we're going to focus on the D365 F&O, and we want to talk a little bit about some of the various pricing options and how we can manage ASC 606 or IFRS 15 inside of Dynamics 365 F&O. So just a few of the capabilities of our subscription billing suite. You have the ability to manage both deferred and non-deferred items on a single sales contract. We can do deferrals two different methods. We can do it based on a ratable, calendar-based, straight-line calculation. For example, you see in the chart here, we've got April, May, June, July, 204.03 a month. We do have an option as well that allows you to have, rather than equal per period, a per diem recognition. So the month of May and July that have 31 days would get a little more revenue than April and June, which have 30, which would get more than February, which is sometimes 28, sometimes 29, depending upon the year. So that's the straight line type of recognition. Rather than taking your invoices out to Excel and building this and bringing it back in, we're building the schedule and allowing you to use it, to forecast on it, to post at your leisure. We can also do recognition based on milestones. So for example, you may have a situation where you tell the customer, we're going to, or on the contract it says, you have certain things that you need to do, performance obligations, deliverables we used to call them. So for example, when I deliver, I'm going to recognize a certain percent of my revenue. When I implement, I'm going to recognize a certain percent, and when my training is finished, I'm going to recognize the remaining amount. So we can build out the schedule. Notice that some of these items don't have dates in them. In this case, I did complete this milestone on June 11, 2018. I can import in using the data entities, or I can open it up and manually key it in that date. When I tell the system to create my journal entries for the month of June, this particular line, this $3,900, will be picked up. The other two will not, because there is no date in here yet. When those milestones are met, at that point I would put the dates in. So that's the revenue recognition capability. Under ASC 606, though, how we recognize revenue has changed a little bit. There's a 5-step method under ASC 606 that we have to follow, or IFRS 15 for the international folks. We have to identify the contracts with the customers. We have to determine the performance obligations. Now, those things can't be done inside the software. That's kind of judgment calls that you have to make. What we need the software to do to make our lives easier, rather than having to go out to Excel, is determine what are the transaction prices, the standalone selling prices of each of those obligations, and then allocate the revenue based on the standalone selling price, and then recognize the revenue upon satisfaction. This is the point where we put in the dates that says, yes, I've met that milestone, or I've met that deliverable, that performance obligation. Bottom line in 606, it's about 200 and some pages, but if you boil it down, really what it says with a lot of accounting speak and some examples is that you need to recognize the correct amount of revenue at the correct time behind the correct items. That's really what ASC 606 and IFRS 15 says. But how do we do that inside of our ERP? A lot of our customers in the past have been telling us they've had to do this in Excel with manual calculations and manual journal entries. Here's what it looks like inside of D365 Finance and Operations. Basically what we're going to do is determine our performance obligations. Those are our items. We see those here on the far left. We're telling the system to treat these as if they are each a single contract. So we can put multiple contracts on a standalone, or a billing schedule if we need to. We're going to determine the standalone selling price of each of those items, and we store that in the system. We're going to talk about that in just a little more detail. and then we automatically reallocate the revenue to assist with compliance. Those standalone selling prices we can get from various areas. We can use the base sales price. That's simply going to go back to the item master. It's going to look at the sales price that you put there and say, this is the standalone selling price. It could look at the price that's on the actual invoice. Maybe your prices don't change. Maybe you don't store the pricing, but you're importing them in from a CRM or some kind of another front end. We can look at the actual invoice price. Perhaps it's like a percentage of another item. For example, a service contract might always be 20% of the item that it's supporting. And as that price varies, the price of the service contract would vary. Or it could be an amount that we simply store in the system itself. We could have maybe no standalone selling price for an item like a discount on the entire contract. You don't really want to allocate any dollars to it. It's allocated across the other items. And then we have the ability to have some parent-child amounts as well. And then, of course, for those items that are highly variable, those that we just cannot determine a standalone selling price because they're too new, we would use the residual method. It's very limited in scope as far as ASC 606, but we do have the ability to have the residual method as well. We have the ability to create different subscription billing schedules as well with line level control. We have various billing types, and this is really where we want to focus today is the billing types and the pricing methods. So from the billing types, we have the ability to have different item types. A standard item is simply going to use the item as it appears in the inventory module. A usage-based item would be something like minutes on a cell phone, minutes on an IVR, license count for seat licenses, hours of professional services time, that kind of thing. And then we have milestone items as well. Again, very similar to the milestone recognition, we could have milestone billing where we're going to bill based on milestones in the contract, not necessarily based on calendar months. We have different billing frequencies, and again, we can set these at the line level. We can see in this example, I have some one-time items, I have a monthly item, I have an annual item. We also have daily, quarterly, semi-annual options in there as well, and the ability in the next column to set the billing interval. So if you have a contract where you're billing, for example, every 2 years, you could set it to annually, interval 2, and it will bill every other year. So a lot of flexibility. As far as the pricing methods, and we're going to look at this in just a little more detail, we have the ability to have standard pricing. Again, it's going to go back out to the price list. It's going to grab it from the price list or the trade agreement and bring that price in. Flat pricing will allow me to use whatever I want to key in. So if my sales guys can go out and make whatever deal they want within a certain parameters, just make the best deal for the company and for the customer. It's kind of hard to store that in a price list. So we have the option to key in or import in a flat amount. The tiered pricing, we're going to look at this in a little more detail, how the tiered and the flat tiered work. In fact, let's go on and we'll have a look at that. Here's an example of how the pricing works. Again, the standard is simply going to pull it from the item master, from the trade agreement. The flat, we're going to key or import in any amount. Here's an example of the tiered and the flat tiers. Suppose in my trade agreement, I have tiers that say, from 1 to 500 units is $2 per item. We'll just look at those first three columns for a moment. From 500 to 1,000 is $1.85. From 1,000 to 5,000 is $1.50. From 5,000 and above, it's $1 per unit. That's if I'm using just cumulative tiered pricing. Flat tier pricing, that first tier will always be $1,000. The second tier will always be $1,750. The third tier, $6,000. The last tier, $10,000. Here's an example of how it would look. In out-of-the-box D365, if the customer was to buy 1,250 items, it's going to skip those first two sections of the trade agreement and say, the 1,250 falls between the 1,000 and 5,000, therefore it will bill the entire 1,250 at $1.50 per unit, or $18.75. With our tiered pricing module, you get cumulative tiers. The cost is $2 each for the first 500, $1.85 for the next 500, then it's $1.50 per unit, giving us $19.2875 for that same purchase of 1,250. Using the flat tier, of course, it's simply going to look at the first two tiers and say, no, it doesn't fit in there. It does fit in that flat tier of $6,000. So this is the way our pricing module works, the advanced pricing inside of D365 Finance and Operations. We also have the ability to give a certain quantity free. Think of your cell phone plan. We all have a cell phone where our base price, the amount that we pay each month, gives us a certain number of minutes free. Well, we also have the ability to reset that per number of periods as well. So for example, I can say I've got 100 free and I'm going to reset that every 3 months. So Once you've used the 100, it will bill the overage. If you don't use that, it'll reset the counter back to 0 and start counting again at 3 months. And you can set that whatever parameters you want in there. We also have in the lower portion of this screen the ability for committed amounts, minimum billings by amount or by quantity, maximum billings by amount or by quantity. For example, this is the free quantity. Here's an example where with that 100 free, in month 1 I've used 80, month 2 I've used 35, and it bills for the overage. Month 3 I've used the 52, it bills the entire amount. It resets after the 3 months and starts doing that process over again. The minimum and maximum, here I'm saying that by quantity, the minimum billing will be for 60 units, the maximum will be for 360 units. So again, if we look at an example of that, if I'm using 25 or 35, the minimum is 60. It will bill a minimum of 60. If I use something underneath the maximum, it will bill that actual quantity. Once I exceed the maximum of 360, it will only bill that amount. So this just gives us some advanced pricing options inside our advanced recurring contract billing. Of course, this all works with our advanced revenue expense deferrals module as well. I'm going to take just a couple minutes and jump into D365 and just show you what some of this looks like. As you can see, there's the advanced recurring contract billing. There's the advanced revenue expense deferrals. The multi-element revenue allocation is down below. That's a very simple module. All it's going to do is inside there allow me to store the standalone selling prices, and I can do some revenue splits as well if I've got a single item that's split across multiple performance obligations. If we go back to the advanced recurring contract billing and open up a simple schedule, I have one that has some multi-items on it here. And if I scroll down, we can see that I have on a single contract, I have items that are billed annually, monthly, quarterly, some more monthly. There's a one-time item. Notice some of these items are deferred, some of them are not deferred. This ties back into our advanced revenue expense deferrals module, which I can access from here. Based on the setup, this hardware is going to use a milestone-based recognition where when I deliver it, I'm recognizing 50%, on implementation 30%, on training, I'm going to recognize the remaining 20%. We'll build that schedule based on the parameters here. If I scroll up, you notice that we can at the same time create a deferral schedule for the revenue. If there is a discount, we want to defer it so it matches as well. And if there is consumption or cost of goods, we want the expenses to match the revenues. We'll build the entire 3 schedules off that same template down below so that our revenues and our expenses match. If I have an item that's based on a straight line recognition, for example, my software, I'm going to build this perhaps, let's look at this quarterly software. I want to recognize it each month over that quarter. Again, the advanced revenue expense deferrals allows me to very easily do that by simply saying I'm going to use a template that I've called a quarter, and all that template does is say to recognize the revenue over a period of 3 months. So it will take the amount that I'm selling, it will divide it by the 3 months, and it will automatically build that deferral schedule out for me. Where do we find those advanced pricing options? Right on the same line, we've got the option here to hit the advanced pricing options. Depending upon how much you've zoomed in, it will be on the same line. I can set up, the free quantities, the reset period, my minimums and maximums as well, again, by amount or by quantity. Now for the ASC 606 component that we have to match, make sure our revenue hits the right amount at the right time. We put that right here at the header level. We can click on the revenue allocation, and we can see very similar to the screenshot we were looking at earlier, all of these items are part of the same contract. The flat tiered and the tiered items are usage-based, so we excluded those. But we can see here's the value on the contract, but the standalone selling price is here. It looks at it based on the entire contract and simply reallocates the revenue. If there is any portion that differs between what I'm billing and what I'm recognizing, and that will happen almost every billing period over the life of a contract, it will be stored in the account that we select here. By the time we finish the contract over the life of it, we will have billed the same amount and recognized the same amount. So I just wanted to jump in very quickly again and show you just how integrated our applications are. Again, we can come in here and we can see all of our deferral schedules as well as the billing schedules that we were looking at earlier. And all of it is inside of D365. There's no need to take this information out to Excel, which a lot of our customers are having to do, and build those deferral schedules out there. We manage them all inside the system. Once a month, you would simply come in here and tell it that we want to do our recognition processing, and all that recognition we recognize without any manual journal entries. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up and turn it back over to Jason. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to contact us at Binary Stream Software.
Great, thank you, Neil. And I'm going to hand things over to Ed Kennedy now from Episerver. Just one reminder as I do that, we will be putting up contact information at the end as well. So if you've seen email addresses flash across the screen, don't worry, we will get you those as well as a recording of today's event.
Great, thanks, Jason. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Ed, yep, we hear you. Go right ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Lovely. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Hopefully these sessions have been informative just to inspire different ideas for getting the most value out of your Dynamics implementation. I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about combining Dynamics with your digital experiences. As I've worked with organizations that run F&O or AX and they're powering their .com websites, I'm seeing a lot of missed opportunities in some of the data sets that reside in F&O. So I'll touch on that as well as some integrations that Episerver's done to our web application. So for those of you unfamiliar with Episerver, we run 30,000 websites around the world, most of them running on our Azure tenant. We operate everything from digital marketing websites, e-commerce websites, portals, etc. And we're a top 5 Azure partner with over 7,000 customers around the world. So various organizations come to us to run their large-scale digital commerce and digital marketing operations. And being a .NET and heavy Azure consumer, we've also integrated our platform into Dynamics 365 for sales, F&O, AX, Business Central, and others to allow customers to operate those websites on top of those systems. So I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that I see opportunities to take data out of F&O and CRM and to have it power your websites, as well as data that modern platforms, web platforms are now capturing that can be used to add value to your sellers, to your sales reps, to your customer service agents and store point of sale associates. But first, just to set some context, I think it's important to understand that we are living in a different time than maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, where we as institutions, organizations really held a lot of information inside of our organization. We had the right pricing information, product information, where products were located, and technology has enabled consumers and B2B customers to gain access to product information, pricing, and location, and things are sort of out of our control, much more than they used to be. So I think that's important when we look at how you're going to operate your digital experiences and engage with end consumers, because they will be able to get access to your information one way or another. The ways to think about this is both in B2B lens, which is that most of the purchase decision to engage with your customer, with your company, is done before your sales team is contacted, and that's a very common and now well-documented fact that your customers are engaging in web and digital first before they ever engage directly with you. And this is also true on the B2C side, that as consumers, we look for and trust website information way more than anything else that's owned by our companies. So when I look at what's happening inside of F&O and AX, I see a huge opportunity. I think there's gold inside of these applications that is untapped and unused in a lot of digital experiences. So I'm going to walk through 3 examples of data that's stored in F&O, AX, and CRM that can be used to operate your digital experiences. The first key thing is the customer data and segmentation that you've done in AX or F&O or CRM. It doesn't really matter to us. We have integrations to all of them. Can now be used to segment and target experiences to customers on your website. So what you're seeing on the left here is just our version of a segment builder, where you can reach into your CRM or F&O install and grab customer data and create segments within Episerver, then allow you to personalize what those customers see when they come to the website, whether that be a banner, a promotion, a product recommendation. This is allowing the segmentation that you've already done in these applications to power the website. And modern digital experience platforms are now able to consume this data and do something valuable and meaningful with it. The second is all the business logic that you've configured in F&O and AX implementations. We use retail server modules to automatically pull up product data, pricing data, inventory locations from within AX to operate e-commerce websites that we run. So if you already have pricing, inventory configured, and business logic applied to it, you can use that to operate the website immediately, which reduces the time it takes to launch new digital commerce websites. The third is the ability to launch digital marketing campaigns from within CRM. So if you have segmentation done in CRM, you can actually launch and publish email marketing and SMS text message marketing from directly within the segmentation you've already done in CRM. So those are three areas where I see there's a lot of valuable data inside of Dynamics that can be used to operate and improve the customer experience that your marketing and e-commerce teams are operating. I think the opposite is also true, that there's a lot of value now being captured from within modern web applications. The amount of tracking and data that platforms like Episerver are now capturing and storing can be used inside of Dynamics, and we've done some integrations in the other direction. One of the key areas that I think we can all be using web data more is all of the behavioral data and clickstream data that platforms like Episerver capture and embedding that within CRM or in point of sale. So this is just a fictitious example of a consumer that's on Episerver properties browsing on mobile and desktop. Our customer data platform captures all of the views and visits to the website and quickly embeds that within a CRM view for customers to engage with. So we see sales reps and call center agents being able to quickly reference what this customer was doing on the website right before they called to have a much better in-context view of that customer's needs and how to respond appropriately. Another example is all of the data that we're capturing on the Episerver side in terms of product engagement and sales. So with our Power BI connectors, we're able to consume web data from desktop, mobile, and email, and co-mingle and mix that data up with call center, in-store data, and sales data to provide a single Power BI report for our customers to do deeper analysis. And again, I think that's a key area where there's a lot of data that these web platforms are now gathering that can be used to make better decisions. The third aspect of web platforms that I think is underused inside of Dynamics is machine learning and artificial intelligence powered recommendations. Our platform studies the behavior of all visitors and suggests and recommends products and content that we think will be the most appropriate for that visitor's journey. And this is all machine learning powered and automated. We do that today, pushing those content and product recommendations into a desktop experience or a mobile experience or email marketing. But now you can also embed those product recommendations or content recommendations into CRM or into point of sale experiences so that associates can recommend the right products based off of what this consumer has been doing compared to other consumers that have engaged with that brand, retailer, or manufacturer. One customer that has done this using Episerver, AX, and CRM is Eason. There are book retailers still in existence, if you can believe it. This one is based in Ireland. They operate about 30 stores, and they used all the business logic they've set up in AX to power their omni-channel fulfillment program. So on their new Episerver website, you're able to get directly into a product and immediately pull up inventory locations for each of the stores, specific pricing for customers, and connect it to their loyalty program that they have built out in CRM. Because they're running everything on Dynamics and Episerver on one Azure tenant, they're able to quickly launch this experience just in a matter of months. And their holiday period this last year they saw a 31% increase in revenue, and their average order value went up by 22% using various tools that Episerver provides. So I hope that gives you some ideas of what you can do with some of the data inside of CRM, F&O, AX to operate your e-commerce websites. I'll turn it back to Jason to wrap it up with questions.
Great, thank you, Ed, and yeah, thank you to all three of you, Gwen and Neil as well. We do want to take questions now, and as we're doing that, let me also just put up some contact information for our three presenters today. So you have that as we get into the Q&A here. So yeah, if you haven't entered your questions yet, please do look for the Q&A block to the right of the slides and enter your questions, and we will be diving into them here and see what we have. So, so first question, Gwen, this one's for you, and kind of related to coming out of Ed's presentation, actually, is asking about e-commerce. So, can Experlogix CPQ be used in e-commerce or with e-commerce?
Yes, I'll take that question. Yes, Experlogix can be extended to various portal solutions out there. So multiple commerce solutions that already connect to Dynamics, Experlogix can be extended to those directly.
All right, excellent. Neil, a question for you, asking about deferral schedules. So if a deferral schedule, when it is created, do journal entries get posted into future periods?
No, they do not. The only advantage of having something posted in future periods, and there are some ERPs out there that do that, some of the Dynamics products, is so that the accountants can look and see, what am I going to recognize next month, next quarter, next year. We build you a schedule so you can see that, but you don't have to have those periods open. We don't post in the future periods. Imagine if you've got a 36-month contract. Who wants 36 journal entries posted into the future? If that customer cancels, now you've got corrections and your general ledger is messed up years out into the future. We build the schedule, we build the reports so that you can see it for forecasting purposes, but we let the user be in complete control as to which journal entries get posted and when.
All right. All right, a question for Ed Kennedy from Episerver, asking what record can be used in Dynamics 365 in the Episerver website.
Yeah, there's a variety of different records that can be used, everything from customer records, orders, product information, pricing, and inventory. So any of the major account fields that you have against those records can be used either to personalize the website to visitors or used to operate it, such as logging customers in, having them see their specific pricing, or placing orders based against their payment terms.
All right. One last question. It was for Gwen, but I think I'm going to open it up to everyone. It's just about it's asking what kind of licensing options you have for cloud-based solutions. So Gwen, why don't I open this one up to you, and then maybe we can have our other panelists answer it as well.
Okay, sure. Experlogix is offered as an on-premise as well as an online solution. It can also be hosted by your own provider and then used as a subscription-based billing. And we do support AWS or Azure.
Great. Neil, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So yeah, our subscription billing suite actually has 3 different levels. There's an entry level that has some of the features that we were looking at. And then there's 2 additional levels. So depending upon which features are needed, exactly which reports are needed, and so on, we have different levels. Our sales staff can obviously give you more information on that. And it's priced based on named users. So basically, you select the features that you want for the number of users that need to actually access the system, and it can run anywhere where your D365 F&O is running. And of course, Business Central, Nav, GP, we have all of those available as well.
All right, thank you. And Ed, could you take this one?
Sure. If a company's going to operate their websites using Episerver, we have a pretty simple calculation just based off of the number of visitors that the website will have. That determines the cloud subscription pricing. We have a platform as a service that operates on top of Azure. In limited cases, customers do buy an on-premise license and deploy to a cloud for certain situations, but most of our customers subscribe to our cloud tenant. And then there's an additional fee depending on which Dynamics applications you're using that you want to use on the website as well.
All right. Well, I'll make a final call for questions here. I think we are through the queue. And as we start to wrap up here, well, first let me just say thank you to all three of our presenters today, Neil, Gwyn, Ed. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Much appreciated. And as we wrap up, I want to just remind everyone today's event has been recorded. As you depart today, please do look for a quick survey that pops up. We appreciate any feedback you can provide. Just takes a few seconds after the event ends. With that, we are prepared to close things up. Thanks once again for your time and attention today, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.